Welcome back to the podcast. Here we are with a home team episode. We have MDV, Dennis, and Gabe, along with myself, Jason, and we are fired up to talk all things fitness, lifestyle, and training. So, yeah, Gabe, where do you want to kick us off at today? Because I got my own things on my mind, but I know you had a few things we should discuss to start off with. I did some Bulgarian split squats this morning. I was thinking of you the entire time. My ass was on fire. That sounded terrible. But Gabe, good morning. That sounded terrible.
Yikes, bro.
What a great start.
Maybe we should restart the podcast.
What a great start to the podcast.
Just thinking about you and my ass is on fire.
Man. Dude, Bulgarian split squats, man. It's so funny because that Andre Cruz podcast went up, and I don't know if you saw someone commented on the community tab if we paid him to talk about that movement. It's so funny how people like it's like a rolling meme. Like you even see it on Instagram. Like people love complaining about that movement specifically, but I think that like universally, and we've had Alec Blennis on the podcast. He was a really interesting guest and someone that I follow on social media. He talks about this a lot. I just think that there's movements that are naturally going to be uncomfortable for you in the beginning, and if you're someone honestly, primarily like us who have been training for a while, there's so much value in finding things that, you know, maybe their benefit compared to the more conventional movements are marginal. But, you know, that's kind of like we're at the point where at the margins is where we can get a little bit stronger. We can just challenge ourselves in ways. Like if we keep doing the movements that we're just super comfortable with, I feel like that's, I don't know, I wouldn't say a waste of time with our training, but definitely a way to find some interesting things. And I think the Bulgarian split squat just encapsulates that in a movement that most people have seen because it's not so out on the margins that people are like, oh, I've never done a weighted Jefferson curl, for example, or something like the more crazy stuff that these, you know, really strong people can do. But because it's so different, because it requires, you know, a level of like balance and loads a single leg and, you know, the CNS fatigue is pretty high, like because of all of those things and the soreness afterwards. We've talked about this before. It's always going to have a novel response because most people aren't doing it often. You kind of do it every blue moon, you get really sore, and then you do it every blue moon again and you get really sore and you just complain about it every time. Then that's kind of why I think it gets this rap. But I think it's a great movement.
Yeah. I did those this morning, and then I happened to be at a conventional gym because my daughter swims at like a near regular gym. And you know what's really, I don't know what you guys think about this. I'm curious your take. Very satisfying. You know, it's one of the most satisfying movements in the conventional gym that you don't really naturally think about off the top of your head. You want to know one?
Can we guess before you?
Yeah.
Is it a machine? Is it a plate loaded machine or is it a pin loaded machine?
It's a pin loaded machine that makes you feel a certain way, and it only can be done on this particular machine.
Lat pull down.
Okay, lat pull down is really good, and I did do those today too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whatever
fly.
The one MDV is doing, which is like
chest fly.
Chest fly, not bad. Pec deck. Gabe, you want to take a guess? Something very satisfying.
I was going to say lat pull down, so
I would then. My second guess would be the seated low cable row.
Oh, seated low cable row, close grip with the iron.
Yeah, even more so than a lat pull down.
that move down, that I love low cable.
Yeah.
Low cable, seated row, excellent. Lat pull down, incredible. But you know which one makes me feel it's just great? Because I don't ever do these.
Seated quad extension.
Yep. Seated quad.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I just watch my quad get a massive pump, and I just feel I just feel so like, dude, I'm like the CT Fletcher, was it CT Fletcher? Yeah. I command you to grow. Like, I feel like my quad is growing when I do those seated extensions. So, anyways,
stare at the muscle too while you're doing it.
Seated quad extension.
Yeah. So
stare it into growth.
But all of those were good. Lat pull down, rows, but dude, the seated ones. It's good.
You can do them on the I haven't actually tried them, but this reminds me that I've wanted to. Yeah, you can do them on the reverse hyper. Have you tried it?
Yeah. I tried it.
It's not the same, but
Not
I mean,
the same.
You know.
Yeah, I do them like that too, but it's not the same.
I
tried them with the monkey foot too.
Oh, dude, the monkey foot. My monkey foot broke so fast.
Those monkey foot, they're pieces of shit. And the leg extension with those is horse shit.
So shout out Titan Fitness Equipment. I know that we are a rogue friendly company in general, but Titan does make a really good seated quad extension, plate-loaded quad extension. It was cheap too. That's why I went with it, because Rogue makes one too, which was very expensive and it's super well done. But there's a nice one out there that you can get for the garage. That's a pretty minimal footprint, and I
might look into that.
It's a game changer, bro. It's a game changer.
Have you guys tried?
Get that Rogue one.
Have you guys tried the monkey foot?
No.
Yes.
Oh, dude, that thing was so frustrating because it was great for hamstring curls specifically, but it just like broke in like a month of using it. Like
they're not well made.
The strap that like tightens it onto your foot just like completely wasn't catching anymore. That was really disappointing because it was really useful until it wasn't.
Yeah, I've had 2 of them and they both broke.
But it is like, it's such a good feeling to be able to single leg hamstring curl with the actual weight. Like, what else can you mimic that with? You can't really, unless, you're at a conventional gym with a hamstring curl machine. Cause I've done, the hamstring curls on a rower. I've done it on a med ball, Pilates ball, like all of those things. But just being able to put a dumbbell and, progressively overload, like it was so nice, but I haven't found, I've only tried one. Maybe someone in the comments can let us know if there's a better built version.
Yeah, that'll be a good, if we do some of these live sometime, someone will be able to comment right in. We can make anyways, one day we're going to do these live. But hey, Dennis, I have a question. When did you start having the kids? Was that your daughter that was lifting? Like, was that like a 20 pound? Like,
the best.
How much weight was that you sent?
That was 22 pounds, a 12-pound barbell with 5s on each side.
Yeah. Dude, so Rogue makes 5-pound bumpers that are filled with air. They're pretty cool so that they could but yeah. So wait, how old is she?
She's 5.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, like she does that stuff on her own. Her and my son, we don't like formally get them in the gym and give a workout for them. Like they make up their own workouts. They mimic what other people are doing. They mimic what we do. Hunter usually creates little workouts to do on his own, and they just start loading them up. They came in with me the other day at 5 a.m. when they were off school, and they both took the 5 a.m. class. It was classic. They're both doing like walking lunges, bench press, dumbbell snatches, and they just jumped in with the class and grabbed their own weights and just kind of watched whatever the people were doing and figured it out.
Dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. I know.
I have to report back, but I was looking up California state records for powerlifting, and I was just like really curious. And it just so happens there is no 11-year-old state record for deadlift in the state of California. 0. So if we show up to a deadlifting meet, Caden's guaranteed a state record. I don't know if you'd really brag about that, but it would be fun to I don't know. I'll let you guys know if we end up doing it, but he wanted to do a powerlifting meet. So I'll keep you guys posted if we end up doing it.
Definitely.
All the 11-year-olds who listen to our podcast about to show up now.
It'd be packed with
11-year-olds.
Go out there. You can't just go lift the bar. If you're going to go set a record, you got to lift something pretty legit. That's my take on it, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. If there's no record, you could just lift whatever you want, and then you got the record.
I guess. But we'll see.
Awesome.
All right.
I did some personal training. This was the same kid. I've talked about him on the podcast before, on episodes of just me and Jason. There was this one kid who really wanted me to train him when I was doing some coaching. This was probably last summer. And the reason he wanted some training was he was a power lifter, it was a senior season, and he really wanted some additional work. So I was like, great. What I've talked to Jason about in the past is definitely made me feel old, both in even just what he was saying. There were some things I was like, what? What does that even mean? But we would have some sessions when the gym was completely empty. And so he wanted to put on his music, and he would put on music, and I would be so uncomfortable. And so dude, we cannot listen. Even though there's no one else in here, I cannot listen to this music right now. And it was the funniest moment because you remember when you were a kid or a teenager and you're fucking old people just making a big deal of this stuff. And it was funny. But what I was going to bring up is I do think that there's something to be said about at that age. And I know this doesn't apply to someone like Caden. He's doing all sorts of fitness. But one thing that at least seemed apparent with him and some other, there were some other kids on the powerlifting team that used to come to the gym where I was coaching at is, man, if all they're doing is those movements, I had him do the simplest, just like single leg kind of like stuff just to like round out what he was doing in powerlifting practice. And especially at that age where they're like figuring out their body and like kind of awkward, like it's such a area of weakness. And he did get a lot better. And I'd like to think that he got a lot better just because we were doing these honestly very simple, not super heavy, just, different things than what he was doing. Because if all you're doing is like, especially he was telling me like every time they squat in powerlifting practice, like they're wearing the squat suit. Like it's such a very tunnel visioned, like this is all we lift and this is all we do. And I know that there are probably some programs out there that are doing the accessory work and are doing that stuff, but especially at that age, it seemed like such a missed opportunity to just have boys specifically as they're kind of like hitting puberty and coming of age, like be a little bit athletic, a little bit aware of their bodies, not just like how heavy can you go down, up, and that's it, But anyway, just something I remember training that kid.
Oh, the adaptation that's going to happen at that age. Who had the quote where it was like something about like, yeah, steroids is cool, but have you ever been 16 years old, drank a gallon of milk and then done a squat program? Like, it's just like, you're going to grow if you do that kind of stuff, man. I forget who had that quote. It wasn't me.
Hey, so speaking of like the words the kids say, last time I don't know if it was just you and I, Gabe, or the four of us, but I was trying to think of what the word is, and it's cap. Have you heard this? So it's like,
We're about to sound so lame, bro.
What?
Yeah. We're
like,
about to sound so lame.
It's like no cap, like I'm not lying or whatever, right? Like no joke. Like it'd be like, I don't know, everything's free, no cap. Like, and I had never heard this. Like,
but that's a perfect example of like, literally he would say something, he'd just be talking to me and like say something exactly like that. And I couldn't even make heads or tails, like with the context and the conversation of like what he was saying to me. I was just like,
wait, so MDV, you've heard cap?
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard
MDV's cool with the youngins.
Yeah, you must be in. I mean, you're an OG, so you must be in with all the youngins.
MDV's hanging out with the kids. He sees them every weekend, the ones that told them that he's
MDV is definitely the cool one of the home team.
Oh my goodness, dude. Yeah, I've heard of cap. Cap and no cap, right? You can use it both ways. But Gabe, I was watching, somebody sent me a clip this morning of John Gruden talking to I think a new draftee or somebody on his podcast with Barstool. And he was asking him like, hey, do you listen to music? Like, what's on your playlist right now? What's on your iPad? He said, actually, so it sounded super lame. But the guy responded, he was like, I listen to Migos. And John was like, I have no idea. I've never heard of it. But then it cuts to a clip of him watching film in his living room. Like everything's dark and he's watching football film on this big screen and he's blasting Migos. And his son walks in and he's like, what are you listening to? And Gruden's like, it's Migos. Ever heard of it? It was so funny, dude. It was just like, it was so in line with what we were just talking about, where it's like, we have no idea what people are listening to these days.
I have no idea what Migos is.
Yeah, I know Migos' music, but like,
you guys, I mean, I know that they exist as a musician, but I couldn't tell you. Maybe I could tell you like one song, but yeah,
it's pretty funny.
Never heard of Migos. Never heard of it.
Dude, so one thing that I was curious your guys' take on, and we've talked a decent amount about kind of like youth sports and that whole area changing. I thought that this. And I'm not a big like football fan. I'm not following this like super closely, but it's just something that's become such a big deal that, it's everywhere. And I don't know if you guys heard, but Shadeur Sanders, Deion Sanders' son, super highly touted quarterback prospect, like in many early projections or even late projections, right up to the draft, he was like first round lock, possible like first QB out. They were talking about him maybe being like the third pick overall, and he slid all the way to what, MDB, the fifth round?
Round 5.
Fifth, like insane.
Round 5. That's pretty crazy.
So obviously there was a lot of talk about like why he's been, like blackballed, call it whatever, going undrafted. But the one take that I thought was really interesting, I sent you guys this on Instagram, and this was actually Tiki Barber, shout out Tiki Barber, with the take is he was saying that now, in the past, when teams conduct these interviews of players, because that's part of it, right? Like there's the combine, there's obviously seeing what they did in college, but they actually do these like one-on-one interviews. In the past, red flags have been like, possibly that they're, unprepared or just not super
Bad
in
attitude,
it,
partying.
attitude, like kind of stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. But now there's this like third category, which is that he explained it really well, is they don't love the sport. And he went on to explain, and this was interesting because I'd never thought of it this way, but football's the one professional sport where unless you're like a top 5 draft pick, like you don't really get your payday unless you earn it. Like you could be a high touted prospect, but there isn't guaranteed contracts in the NFL. Like in baseball, players, even if you never make it to the bigs, like you potentially might get like a multi-million-dollar signing bonus. They make a lot of money. And when you eventually do get paid, it's usually guaranteed. In the NFL, most contracts, unless you're like a superstar, like if you get injured or your career's over, like that's it. Like the money stops coming in. It's a very kind of dog-eat-dog sport. And so what they were saying is that now there are these players because of NIL money, and Shadeur Sanders is like the extreme example of this because of where he went, because of Dion. Like he's obviously going to have a huge brand that has gotten him already paid so much more than even a lot of professional players get paid. So what Tiki was saying was that a big red flag is now some of these prospects are coming in and they don't need to earn it. Like they don't need to go out there and get the payday. Like they're almost like they're already set. And that for a lot of teams is a huge red flag because they don't see the type of hunger that, perfect example, someone that was also drafted super late, someone like Tom Brady. Tom Brady comes into the league like he's got nothing. He's got to either prove it or not. So I don't know. I'm curious your guys' take because I don't maybe 100% subscribe to that being a red flag that would take someone with that talent, objectively all the experts agreed, and make them slide all the way to the 5th round. But I do think it matters, doesn't it?
It's not the money though. It's not the money. It can't just be the money. MDV, I'm curious your thought, but just real quick, if it's just the money, then why would Tom Brady continue to play? Like if the statement is, hey, NIL money gives these kids so much money that then they don't have the same grit and determination to be successful. Well, that same logic would apply if you've been in the league for 10 years or 5 years and now you're making 20 million a year. Well, what happens to your grit, right? Like all I'm saying is it can't just be the money. I think it's so many factors that come into play here. I'm curious. I know MDV is probably more in tune on this, but I have my own thoughts on this, but it can't just be the money because that story doesn't hold, because eventually a lot of these players that end up in the league for 20, 30 years, they do make good money. So there had to be something there more. You know what I'm saying?
But I think at that point you are trying to build a legacy at that point. But early on, like there is something to be said about like, dude, I got a plan B. Plan B is really good. Plan B is I like launch a shoe company, launch a supplement company, like start whatever. And I'm good. I don't have to get hurt. I don't have to get CTE. I don't have to do any of those things. Like plan B almost like looks better than plan A. Like I think that it's like inevitable that that's going to play an impact versus the guy that's like, dude, I got to go out there and earn this because there literally is no plan B.
All right. So let me dive into this a little bit because I love this conversation.
Buckle up.
This is like a little bit of a character assassination. I'm not saying it's direct character assassination against Shadeur Sanders, but it's a little bit of a character assassination because this kid didn't need to do anything in his life ever. Let's just call a spade a spade. Your dad is Deion Sanders. You have all the money in the world. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to work hard. You don't have to play. You certainly don't have to put yourself in a position to be compared to your dad at a Hall of Fame level, a one-of-one type of player Deion Sanders was. So now you're going to put your name into the ring and throw your hat into be a player in the league in which your dad was walking on water, essentially, right? So I think that takes a huge amount of fucking courage from Shadeur Sanders to do. First of all, he didn't have to do anything and he could have made money. Anything. The other thing about this is like you brought up the Tom Brady example. You would be fucking crazy if you rewound the draft and you put Shadeur Sanders and Tom Brady next to each other and you drafted Tom Brady before Shadeur Sanders. Get out of here. I mean, Mo Lewis made Tom Brady's career essentially by giving him a shot over Drew Bledsoe when he had that hit on him on the sidelines, right? So Tom Brady might not have ever been, he could have been Tom Brady at some point, but he got an opportunity and he made the most of it, right? That was what happened with Tom Brady. Tom Brady saw an opportunity. He was like, I'm going to put a vice grip on this thing. I'm never letting it go. And I think Shadeur Sanders is going to be in a similar position. He got drafted by the Browns in the 5th round now. So Browns historically have had a really hard time drafting quarterbacks, have had a lot of bad luck with people, have had some people who have played pretty well. But maybe now he comes into the league and he just eats it up, man. I'm hoping that he does, because I think that he probably didn't get drafted because of his name more than anything else, and some of the baggage that comes along with it, knowing that Dion is probably going to be maybe like a helicopter parent in terms of like the league. That could have been it. I'm just kind of speculating. But I don't think it's right to say that because Shadeur Sanders had NIL money or because he had a plan B that like he's not going to work hard. He didn't have to work hard in the first place, and he worked his ass off to get to the point in which he was considered a first round pick. So that's my take. No disrespect to Tiki Barber, but that's kind of how
Gabe,
I
I'll add in. I think it comes down to this. Like, I'll narrow it down to this. I think from a character perspective, some of the teams, dude, could you imagine when you're trying to draft a player, you're talking about great and great. Like, it's one little thing that might make you not want to draft somebody. Like, I mean, I'm talking like a micro something, right? Like, so we're not talking incredibly big differences, but I was thinking about this. I was like, because I was really intrigued on it. Cameron, my brother-in-law, and actually Caden was really interested in this. Was like, dude, what's going on? What's going on? So I actually like was kind of keeping up with the story. I think it comes down to two things for me. Is one is, you know, when he sat down, like, did he have that personality? Was it too much for some team? And it's just like, all right, like, was that too much for a team? And then the other is, dude, if you're a head coach, I was thinking about this. And Deion Sanders is your quarterback's dad, and you don't have a great season. Is a part of you subconsciously trying to protect your job by not drafting him? So think about that. Like, Deion Sanders, you know, plays at this the first college.
Colorado.
Yeah. Well, no, before that, he changed the program around at I can't remember the name. Jackson.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, some school in Florida.
Yeah. Anyways, so he did that. Then he goes to Colorado and he's done much better. Some would say it's because of his name. He pulls all these players, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. But he does much better. Now you're a head coach. You're like, dude, this is my livelihood. This is my whatever. Is he a potential threat to my job? That's just something I was thinking about, right? Like, I don't know.
That's a good take for sure. I think that's a valid take.
Yeah. And MDB, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of it that way, and that makes a lot of sense. Like, you don't even have to put your name in the ring, and that in itself takes a lot. That's a really good point.
You didn't have to do anything, man. This is the thing that I don't think people understand is like Deion Sanders had more money than could ever need in one lifetime. And I'm sure that his kids are set beyond set. So maybe there's some less risk in terms of like, oh, I could go and try this thing, and if I'm really good at it, whatever, I could make some money, or I could be famous, or I could have the glory of being a really great player. So the risk is a little bit less there because he's coming in with that. But like, I don't think the NIL money really should have been considered as a factor. If it was,
it totally makes you want to root for him though. Like, I'm 100% in his kid. Like, I want him to hopefully get some starts this year. I want him to do well if he does. Like, man, there's nothing better than an underdog. I hope he turns this into like a chip on his shoulder and like proves everyone wrong. That would be cool.
Did you see what he said about like his dad being his agent? I thought that was really funny. I thought that was a pretty character revealing when he was like, yeah, you know, Deion's my dad's my agent, but that's not really working out right now. So I'm going to hire somebody else. This was in like the third or fourth round when he didn't get drafted. It was pretty funny. Shout out Shadeur Sanders.
I think too, just to speak to the larger point maybe of like, is NIL money going to affect their ability to compete at a higher level in the league? I think it just comes down to ultimately the personality of the player, right? Like if they're incentivized and they want to play because of how much money they're going to make, that's, you know, I think you see examples, to use Tom Brady as an example, like the players that sustain longevity in the league, they're just so competitive. That is what drives them to be successful for however long a period of time it is, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years. In the case of Tom Brady, it has nothing to do with how much money they're making, right? And in fact, in spite of how much money they're making, they're still putting themselves through what they have to put themselves through to stay competitive in the league. And if a player comes in and they just don't love to compete and they're not like uber competitive, then the money is certainly going to play a role, more or less, like in terms of if they come into the league already wealthy and they're not uber competitive, that's definitely going to have an impact on their willingness to put themselves through what they have to put themselves through in order to stay competitive in the league. So I think it just depends upon the player.
It's going to be interesting to follow, man. It's going to be super interesting to follow. The New York Giants had a good draft. That's all I care about.
Do you see Lawrence, the kid who got drafted in the first round? Asked Lawrence Taylor if he could wear 56, and Lawrence Taylor was like, "No, you can't wear the number."
Sorry, dude.
What does that
The number's already been. So Lawrence Taylor was 56 on the Giants. He's widely considered the greatest middle linebacker of all time, right? He was an absolute phenom, a freak. And 56 was retired in the Giants organization. And this kid who got drafted asked if he could wear 56. And Lawrence Taylor said no.
Of course no.
Of course no. Of course no. Why would you even ask? It makes no sense to me.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Take 55, dude.
I actually think I was talking about this to somebody else the other day, and this is not going to turn into a sports podcast, but maybe for this episode, it might. But LeBron James wearing the number 23 for so long in his career is so interesting to me. Like, LeBron came into the league wearing 23 and wore it for so long, and then he switched to eight, I believe, which is also kind of strange because it was a Kobe switched to 8 at some point too, or started at 8 and then switched. But why wouldn't you want to solidify your legacy where you could potentially have your number retired from the like entire league type of thing, right? Like those people choosing that to wear that number. I mean, it's a huge badge of honor, obviously, for Jordan, but like, why wouldn't you go 23 or 24 or 27 or something that like didn't already have that 23 Jordan legacy attached to it? Anyway.
Yeah, 23 is Jordan.
Yeah, 23 is always going to be Jordan. It's never going to be LeBron.
No.
I'm the biggest LeBron fan in the world too. I love LeBron. I think he's a top candidate for the GOAT conversation right next to Michael Jordan every step of the way. But it's always going to be Jordan 23.
Yep.
You know, it's funny. So I don't really keep up with much sports at all. So that's why I enjoy getting a little bit of feedback here. I'm not super interested in it, but my son went to the Giants game a couple of days ago, and he went with my father-in-law for a birthday gift. And dude, he was sitting behind home plate when they had a MDV, correct me if I'm wrong, a walk-off home run infield because of errors. Did you guys see this?
Little League home run.
Little League home run.
Little League game.
Dude, I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was crazy. Like the batter, I don't know his name. He like basically like drops into the ground. I don't even know what that's called. Then, dude, the third baseman throws it to first. It's a terrible throw, overthrow. Then the first baseman tries to like throw it back to third. It was a terrible throw. And the guy ends up scoring a home run. And I could just imagine like those are the moments in sports that do. I bet you that whole place just erupted like crazy. So maybe I'll find my way to a sporting event here every now and then.
That's one of those moments that builds as the play goes on.
Oh, yeah.
You just can't, like the intensity just builds. And then you have like the Lindor home run the other day where it's just like a moment and it's just maximum intensity.
Oh, man.
Sports is fucking amazing.
Live baseball's fun. Live baseball is really fun.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I don't know if you guys saw the clip. I don't know if we can play the clip. It's in the channel. But I thought this is just funny and brings up like a interesting conversation about dosing and training. And I think we've all had like an experience, especially early on as coaches, where we like gave a little bit too much of a dose to someone new. And I know there was a time where I thought that was like the appropriate thing to do. Like the appropriate thing was to like show people how much intensity you can get out of workout and like, you know, like, oh yeah, like, you know, this person puked or whatever. But the video, I don't know if we can play with audio. If you can't play with audio, it doesn't make sense. Oh, good. So this was from the Kelseys have this podcast, and they were talking to Matt Stafford, and he was talking about Aaron Donald. But essentially, he was talking about, you know, this kid got like a Make-A-Wish type of experience with Aaron Donald, who's a defensive player on the Lions. And, you know, so he's coming in and he's already been past like the chemo and the cancer, but he's like just recovered. So like, he's like in good shape in that he's not sick anymore. And he was like a big kid, big, strong kid. And he goes in and is doing this workout with like his favorite player. And his favorite player is like really intense in the locker room, in the weight room. And he hits him with this like crazy workout. And this kid who came in for this like Make-A-Wish experience is like puking because of the workout. And then Aaron Donald's like, like slamming bicep curls, like trying to get him all amped up. And the video itself is ridiculous. But I think it brings up an interesting point, because I know I've had this experience, especially when I was a young, inexperienced coach that was just, fully on the Kool-Aid of CrossFit specifically. And, sometimes you think that like high intensity is what everyone needs all the time. And it's maybe one of the biggest mistakes that you can do when you're trying to point someone that's new to fitness in the right direction. So I thought it'd be an interesting conversation too, because I know we have a lot of people that maybe are starting the challenge with us. We're on week 1 of the TH45 challenge. Maybe they're seeing, the programming on the app for the first time. And there's so much I think that we can kind of take from this now as to like how people should be approaching fitness, whether they're truly beginners to it, whether they've just had like an extended time off from it and going back in. But yeah, it'd be funny to start with some funny stories, because I'm sure you guys have some.
Yesterday, this is so funny. I was talking to Zach. I was at the gym. Dude, have you ever heard of someone at Mayhem doing 50 minutes of 20 GHD sit-ups a minute for 50 minutes? Have you guys ever heard of this?
What?
No, that just sounds silly though, bro.
So, I mean, that's...
Wait, what is that? That's 1,000?
1,000.
That's 1,000 GHD sit-ups.
Yeah. That just sounded terrible. We were talking about it, and I think that GHD is an area that I definitely overdosed people. I've overdosed a ton of people, but in particular, the GHD is the one that just like stands out to me as like, we don't program those in our program, so we don't have to really worry about that for people that are doing the TH45, but that's a very powerful piece of equipment for sure.
So there's some of this stuff that gets social media-ized that I really think is cool and is like first of all, I'm not going to try and yuck anybody's yum. So if you want to go out there and you want to do 1,000 GHD sit-ups, 20 on the minute for 50 minutes, Godspeed to you.
And if you can still walk after that, that means you get some hella conditioning.
If you don't go to the fucking hospital after that, that means that you've got some serious tolerance to that kind of volume. I would not recommend doing 1,000 GHD sit-ups. I wouldn't even recommend doing 100 GHD sit-ups if you've never done GHD sit-ups before. It's a super, super, super potent movement. It's a long range of motion. You're taking your entire abdominals or entire core through this entire range of motion. It's very explosive, can be explosive up and down. But like coming back to the social media stuff, it's like there's stuff that people do as challenges for themselves to break through barriers sometimes, which I think is really, really cool. Like I saw this one guy, Jim Broski, he did like a Murph every day for a year. Every single day for a year he did Murph, which is...
For a year?
I mean, trying to even do that for a week would be very, very tough, or a couple of days in a row would be tough, but he did it every day for a year. And I'm not saying that I agree with the philosophy of like why he would do that, but at some point I can step back and respect the fact that somebody did this accomplishment and just made it happen. But then there's other stuff out there that's pretty just wanton or reckless. And like, what's the even point of doing it besides just to do it and say that you did it? But maybe that's it. I don't know.
That reminds me of the Iron Cowboy, guy that did 100 Ironman triathlons in 100 days. Oh,
dude, that was wild too. I mean, there's something to be said about just like doing it just to be able to do it, right? Like I want to go do something really hard and climb a big mountain for a birthday. Why? Just because I want to, right? But that's not because like I'm trying to like, put out a social media challenge or anything like that. That's something different. But I do think of overdosing people, man. Most of the time what it comes down to is placing your own fitness level on clients you have. And then if you're new to the game, like utilizing like an old theory of where your fitness is at. And even for me, so I snatched a couple of days ago for the first time in forever. And I was like, I wanted to see if I could like hit like, a couple sets at 225. Nope, wasn't happening. And it's because I lack the stability in the shoulder. I just don't have the same thing. But like my mind still told me I could, but my body told me it couldn't. And I think that's a great time where you could overdose yourself and end up like really, really sore or worse. So that's something I'd be aware of if you're a new, if you're getting back into the game and you know what you could do mentally, just remind yourself you're not where you used to be and you guys spend some time putting in the reps.
Probably the most classic example of too much, too soon, too fast. I mean, besides anybody who's just a very, very novice beginner and getting dosed overwhelmingly so with volume, intensity, or loading. But the other example that you just gave, Jay, is somebody who's highly conditioned for a long period of time in their life and then takes significant time off from doing whether it's one thing or multiple things and then comes and tries to do that thing at the same level that they used to do it.
Yeah. Well, Dennis,
that's how we've gotten. Yeah. We've given 3 people rhabdo at our gym over the years, and all 3 instances were that exact scenario. Someone that had been doing it for a while, took a break, came back, bit off a little more than they should have on their first session. All 3 were from pull-ups, like high volume pull-ups, kipping pull-ups. So we've had 3 cases of rhabdo over the years, and it was that scenario exactly each time.
Yep.
Now, but
we used to always talk about as the wrestler. Remember, like we at the level ones, we'd always be like, "Hey, it's the former college wrestler who has the mindset just to break through a wall." But
right.
And it's still physically like whatever, but all of a sudden you have them do 100 kipping pull-ups and they're toast.
Right. But I think what's interesting, like with respect to the conversation of dosing people with too much too soon, I would guess that all of us were introduced to CrossFit with something that was probably excessive, right? Like it was a workout that was like probably completely inappropriate in terms of the volume, the intensity, and annihilated us, and we fell in love with it and came back the next day and did it again, right? And you hear that story over and over and over and over again. So, I think it speaks to like the type of person that was attracted to the program, especially early on. But also, I think it speaks to the program itself. Like the program is meant to be really hard, really challenging, and not just CrossFit, but any program that's going to elicit a response and get results from people needs to push the intensity at some point. And at the end of the day, you have to decide when you're going to introduce people to that and push them beyond their comfort zone and push them beyond whatever boundaries they set for them. And some people are going to respond favorably to doing that really, really early on. And you're going to get them hooked, and they're going to be encouraged by that, the fact that they could do something they didn't think they could do. And you might have someone that then sticks with it for life. Other people will be completely turned off by that. And you got to be a little more cautious and considerate around like gradually nudging them out of their comfort zone. So you just got to read people and then dose them appropriately. I don't think there's one size fits all for that.
Do you guys remember your first quote unquote CrossFit experience? Mine was the free trial class at CrossFit Garden City with Volpe.
Hell yeah.
And it was 7 minutes, 7 wall balls, 7 burpees. And I was shredded the next day. Like could not sit down, could not stand up. And to your point, I was like, I need to do this again.
Right. And that's coming from a lifelong athlete, someone
when can I come back?
Right. And someone else would do that and never come through the doors again. Right. So just depends.
I did Fran. So
that was the first
workout.
It's funny. I was in Hawaii a little bit, like a week ago, and the gym was hosting a Fran like competition. And I went over there just because I just wanted to go hang out. And they're like, hey, do you want to do it? And I said, dude, you could not pay me. You could not pay me. If you told me I'll give you $1,000 right now to do Fran, like at your high intensity, not like just like casual, I wouldn't do it. Dude, it's because I've done Fran probably 100 times at like super high intensities. I just can't do it. Cause I used to be a demo guy, sometimes even at the level ones. But my first workout was Fran. I remember, dude, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, Dennis. I've been a demo guy when.
Yeah, Jay, let's just see you do this workout real quick in 3 minutes.
Right?
Let's see what intensity looks like. My first workout was Fran with Freddie Camacho and Austin Begibing, and I'll never forget. I had a med ball to hit my thruster, so I had to hit my butt to the thruster, and that wasn't that big of a deal. But I ended up doing strict pull-ups because I didn't know how to kip. And I finished like in 7 minutes. And I remember feeling like that was not hard. And I laid on the ground. I did sit-ups after with an ab mat. And I remember just walking away being like, Freddie, I thought I was supposed to like get my ass kicked today. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand. And then it took me some time after that. That was my first experience.
Do you remember your time?
Yeah, it took me like 7.5 minutes. But I was kind of like half kipping ish.
Yeah.
Half like he might even strip the bar down. I don't remember. Probably not. I don't know. But it was just like, I remember just finishing and be like, like what's next? Because I was very used to other styles of training and I didn't understand the mindset that was required of it.
RPE 7.
I mean,
that's where Jason
now
lives.
I think I've gone
Come full circle.
It's come full circle. It started off RP 7. I went RP 10 for about 20 years, and now I'm going back down to RP 7.
Right back down to 7.
Well, that's the true what is that? The true indicator of knowledge or maturity in training, right? You start off where you at the beginner level, you kind of reach this peak at the middle, and then you come back to thinking about like a beginner again.
That's right.
You fully matured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
MDV, what was yours?
Jiu-jitsu.
So I did, what's really funny, man, is I got introduced to CrossFit by a guy who in my first year of law school asked me if I had ever heard of it. And that was in 2005, like early 2005. And we were just talking about training one day because he was pretty jacked. Sam Ark, shout out to Sam Ark. He had asked me if I ever saw CrossFit.com. And I was like, I mean, I've kind of heard of it, or like maybe I've heard rumblings of it, but never done a workout. So we went over to the gym, and I did Angie with a Bosu ball underneath my butt for the squats. 100 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats. That was my first CrossFit workout. And then I was hooked for many, many years after that, man. Many, many years after that. It's interesting that, one person can interject something into your life and it can change the trajectory of your life for many years. And Sam Ark was somebody who did that for me, where he, super, super nice guy, introduced me to CrossFit and then definitely changed the course of my life for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Like for example, competing in the CrossFit Games probably changed a lot of the trajectory for me, right? It's like you look back on like certain decisions you make and inflection points, right? You have a kid, you have this, you do this job, and everything could be different if you hadn't done that one thing. So
yeah, the 2008 Games for you, bro, is like, that was the same year Every Second Counts came out, right? They were filming Every Second Counts that year, and they were following the storylines of different athletes. They followed Pat Barber, John Wellborn, a couple of other people, and Josh Everett, and then a couple of people who were big names at the time. But then you were kind of like not an afterthought, but they were like, who is this guy winning the games? They kind of switched the camera over to you very quickly. Mm-hmm. Super interesting.
Hey.
Dennis, what was yours? I don't think I remember you sharing that. Or do you remember?
My story is kind of similar to MDV's. I was introduced to it by a guy named Kent Wayan. Shout out Kent Wayan. In Colorado, and he said the same thing, kind of like he was interviewing for a job at the gym that I worked at as a trainer, and he was like an old strength and conditioning coach. He just moved back to the area, and he's like, "You ever heard of CrossFit?" And at the time, I said, "It was just 2006. Never heard of it." He said, "You should go on the website, check it out. I think you'll like it." And he's like, "And then let's get together tomorrow. We'll work out." And I met him the next day, and when he took me through, like, I don't remember exactly what it was. It was some kind of like kettlebell circuit with like swings and maybe thrusters and squats, and like kettlebell squats. I forget the exact movements, I don't remember the workout, but I remember just getting wrecked. And this guy ran circles around me, and I was like, fuck this. I was like, let's meet again tomorrow. And then we met again tomorrow. And the second workout I did was Cindy. And that one I remember. That was the first one that I really remember. And that was it. Never looked back. Yep.
Cindy.
Yep.
Dude, that's wild.
But it's interesting though, because all of us have kind of like told this story, and it's like, yeah, and then never look back. But I think everyone here, well, I mean, to varying degrees, like we don't do, I don't know, it's always complicated to say like, what is CrossFit, what isn't, but we're not doing that type of training, at least to the same level that we were maybe 5-6 years ago. Like for me, it's never really, like I'm not really doing mixed modal training ever. I'm doing high intensity stuff, but when I do, it's specifically just running or just rowing intervals. Like I'm doing just monostructural stuff. I'm not really mixing stuff anymore.
Fit. I was actually having this conversation with the guys at the gym because we were talking crap about my terrible score on the back rack lunge. And they said, bro, if you want to win, just come up with like a very technical CrossFit thing and you're going to win it. Like, and then he's like, watch.
Whoa.
He goes,
we had a technical CrossFit thing, dude.
I know. So he goes, pop up right now and show me your handstand. And boom, just locked it out, rocking and rolling. He's like, that's what you should make the next one. Max, but anyways, the reason why I bring this up is that you guys are all, even if you're not, especially Gabe in particular, because he's so focused on the bodybuilding stuff, like, but yet he's still so damn good at all this other stuff. It's just a testament to like this baseline of fitness. And then that's what I'm trying. This was supposed to be a compliment. And then
for sure. Well, Gabe also moves really well. I mean, your squat was built through CrossFit, and your deadlift was built through CrossFit. And all that base on how you move and how you take that now into isolation, the base of your training, you've learned how to move through the CrossFit methodology. And there's foundations of the training that we do at Train Hard in the Train Hard Daily program that are obviously reminiscent of CrossFit style workouts. We wouldn't be here if we weren't, obviously honoring CrossFit in the way that it has helped change and shape our lives for the better in terms of fitness. Whether or not we're still doing it, like showing up to a gym every single day and like doing a Fran workout and the next day we're doing a Cindy workout and the next day, whatever. I think that's different. I don't even think that matters as much. It just is, it is what it is for us right now. But Train Hard Daily for sure has reminiscent elements of CrossFit.
Yeah. Yeah. Like yesterday, an EMOM, today intervals of box jumps and rowing and different stuff. Like, dude, of course. So speaking of Train Hard Daily, Gabe, we're a week into the TH45.
Correct. Yep.
So we're a week into the TH45. Hopefully by now you guys have gotten in 45 times 5 burpees. That's a little bit too much math for me. And, staying consistent with your workouts in the morning, getting in your protein before 9 a.m., just as a way to jumpstart the day, and then removing alcohol. And if you're 5 days in, you're feeling like, okay, this has been a little bit tough. Dude, come on. We got 40 more days. We're here to support you. Make sure you're on the app. Make sure you're connecting in with the community, because there is a lot of like-minded people that are firing each other up. There was a guy, David, he put in a post yesterday, and he wrote about how the sandbag program has been tough for him. The sandbag program that we have is gnarly, by the way. It's a great workout, but it could be hard. And dude, I commented, and then several other people like that weren't even affiliated with Train Hard just sent support. And that's what you're going to get on the Train Hard app. So if you're not there, make sure to check out the podcast show notes. It's not too late just to join in on the challenge. You still got 35 days left that you could join us, because this thing's going to be life-changing for a lot of people, and we're super excited about it.
Yeah. On that note, a quick note that I wanted to share from a nutrition perspective, because a lot of people, and this is cool, I've been doing this too, because I do think it's helpful, and people constantly like the inspiration or just kind of seeing different ideas for stuff that they can eat, specifically because nutrition is going to be such a big part of this. And I noticed, and nothing wrong with this, but I think it brings up a good point that I think is very prevalent in the, hey, I'm cleaning up my diet, therefore I'm going to have egg whites and fat-free this and fat-free that. And it becomes a lot about trying to chase a very low fat number. And I think that just to get in front of that a little bit, the reason fat is incredibly important for so many reasons. And I think that there are some pros and cons to going too far into this like low fat side, where a lot of foods that are going to be low fat are going to be a little bit more highly processed and also devoid of important nutrients. Egg whites is like a perfect example of this. Like, it's a good idea to maybe have 2 whole eggs and then some egg whites if you're trying to like hit that protein number and not get super high in fat. But you have to remember that like whole eggs are not the enemy here. And we're not trying to, a big part of how we approach nutrition is to not be, like, hey, don't eat this, don't eat that, like keep fat super low. It's, hey, make sure you're hitting a protein number, because I think that that's going to have you be intentional about making sure you're prepared. One thing that I shared the other day is there's so much more wrapped into the 50 grams of protein in the morning than just getting 15 grams of protein in the morning. Like, my intention with that rule for the challenge was that because it's first thing in the morning, hopefully it's forcing some people to be a lot more intentional about like, what's in my fridge? Did I buy everything I need for the week? What am I prepping? Like, just putting a little bit of thought in, hey, what am I going to eat for the next 3 days? I think is incredibly beneficial, because a lot of people know intuitively what the kind of like better nutrition option is. It's just when you're really short on time that you end up making the easier option, which might not be the ideal one. So, long-winded way of saying, I don't want people to get super caught up in this like, hey, must eliminate fat, like egg whites and fat-free this and fat-free that, 100%. And then I'm curious kind of your guys' take on, like low-fat dairy specifically, like egg whites, like what purpose does that serve in a diet? Because there are obviously pros and cons there. You want to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight. Fat is the most energy dense of the 3 macronutrients. Like obviously, if you're having a lot of high fat foods, even if they're quote unquote healthy fats, it is easier for you to not be in a caloric deficit, which means you won't necessarily lose weight. But obviously, there's so much nuance in this stuff. And I think the one thing everyone here would agree is that if you're only having fat-free dairy stuff and fat-free, rice cakes and egg whites, like there's an important part of your diet that is missing, even if you're keeping the calories relatively low. And I just want to get in front of that a little bit because it was never our intention with how we approach nutrition at Train Hard. Anything you guys want to add? Egg white, like what purpose does that kind of stuff serve?
Personally, I'm a proponent of trying to eat food as close to its natural state as possible. And you start messing around with like stripping stuff out of it, taking nutrients out of it, whether it's macro or micronutrients, adding stuff in synthetically, or like to me, you just you're kind of like just right away diluting the quality of the food that you're consuming. And to me, that's just a step in the wrong direction. So I've personally always been someone that focuses more on eating for micronutrients and quality over macronutrients and quantity. And I just sort of by instinct and just, using just based around how I feel and energy levels and how my body responds, I'll kind of adjust the amount of food that I eat day to day and kind of use like an eyeball method. So my personal recommendation to people is to try to eat food as close to its natural state as possible. And you start messing around with like fat-free stuff, and it's just a slippery slope to then eat, consuming stuff that has weird stuff added to it, just for the sake of getting less calories or stripping out fat or something like that. So that's my approach to things.
I mean, Dennis, you and I have very, very similar views on nutrition and how I go about it is almost exactly what Dennis just said. I think of quality over quantity almost all of the time in terms of looking at my food and making sure that most of my inputs are the highest quality that I have available to me at the time. And for me, that means whole foods, as close to the source as I can get these foods, foods that are minimally processed, if at all processed. And I think that just works for me. It works really well for me. I feel best when I eat those things. If I add a lot of things outside of that into my diet, I feel not so great. And I know it's not for everybody. And I know that people have different opinions on this and they want to balance their macronutrients along with any foods, as long as it's balanced in a macronutrient profile that they are trying to follow. 100% go do your thing. But for me, this is a much more enjoyable way of eating, not only because I feel better, but also because like I actually enjoy these foods much more. So yeah, Dennis, you and I are pretty much aligned.
Yeah, I shed a little tear at the thought of a yolk being thrown out into the garbage.
It doesn't make any sense to me, to be honest. It makes no fucking sense.
I mean, that just should never happen.
Well, you buy the egg whites and then you don't throw out the yolk.
Egg whites? What does that even mean? A carton?
Yeah, they have carton egg whites.
Oh, come on. That's right up there with oat milk. Jesus.
Is that worse than oat milk?
It's right up there.
So good. So classic. I love it.
The one interesting thing that I read in a post the other day, and I'd never thought about this before, because I've had the same intuition with specifically low fat or skim dairy products. I used to be a big believer that like, hey, full fat is closest to its natural state. But I did see a post, and this was interesting, and I don't know if you guys like subscribe to this or not, but it made me think about it a little bit differently. Like back in the day, none of the dairy was wasted. So people were making butter and cheese and stuff, and then they were drinking skim milk. Like you drank what was left. There isn't something necessarily, and granted, the process by which we get these products now is significantly different. You're not churning your own butter here and then having, the skim milk. It's actually something we did when we had a dairy cow. But, there's this argument that the only thing that we naturally would have had access to historically was the full fat version of dairy. Just doesn't jive with the fact that if you have the full fat version of this you're going to have the skim version of that and nothing was going to waste. So just an interesting way to look at it.
You were also consuming the fat in just a different form.
For sure,
right?
For sure.
So,
And that's where I think that, again, if you're having egg whites and skim milk and fat-free cottage cheese, and that makes up the majority of where you're getting your protein, you're missing something. And that's pretty black and white. But I think that these things serve a purpose. Like they 100% do in kind of like the building the puzzle of quantity and quality. Because MDV, as someone who 100% prescribes to the importance of quantity, I think that one of the most powerful things people can do to improve their nutrition is track for a period of time, not in perpetuity, because it opens your eyes to so many things that I know people are just getting wrong with their food if they're struggling with weight loss. If you're like at a body composition where you're like, dude, I'm good and I'm not trying to like lose significant weight, I'm not trying to add significant muscle, and I'm not struggling with that, then like keep doing what you're doing. But I think that the quantity perspective is just such an important piece of the puzzle. And as someone that thinks that, I don't think that, what you said, which was, just have anything you want. And if it fits your macros, it fits your macros. Like, I think that that's a very irresponsible way to go about it. Micronutrients and food quality absolutely matter, but so does the food quantity. And I think that it shouldn't be one or the other. It should be that both are important depending on your goals. And if you go one side of the spectrum and you're having nothing but egg whites, fat-free stuff, and Quest bars, and so on and so forth, just to hit a really high protein number, really high calorie number, A, you probably don't feel great. Like if anyone's had a Quest bar, you do not feel good after those. And B, like you're missing very, very vital nutrients. But on the other hand, if you're just eating fully whole foods and you're like, man, I can't get these last 10 pounds off of me, I would highly encourage you to see how many calories you're having in a day and bring that back by like 10, 15%. Keep the same quality of food, but just have that number that you're aiming for. And I promise you'll get results quicker than just continuing to eat whole foods and not get the results you want. I think that that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, the old jar of almond butter problem.
Yeah, for sure. Or like avocado on everything.
I want the information first. I want the information. That's what I would want first before making a decision about which lever I would try to pull with a person. Even myself, I'd be like, well, what are you really doing? Like, tell me exactly what you're really inputting into your system. Is this really it? Or are you binging Oreos at night? Or are you like, whatever? Are you eating a whole jar of almond butter at some point? Or like, I think at that point you have more information to make an educated guess versus, or, give a recommendation versus just saying like, what I think you should do is like, you should measure everything you put into your body. Or what I think you should do is you should cut out.
Well, to your point, how do you get information on what they're actually eating if they're not measuring how much they're eating?
I don't care. I just want to see. I want pictures. I want to see, like, give me an idea of like what this looks like. I don't know. I don't subscribe to the same stuff as you do with everything, and that's okay.
For sure.
Okay. It's okay with me. I just don't necessarily think that I would ever pull the quantity lever first without knowing the quality, the real quality of this person's nutrition. That's just how I operate best in this environment of a very complex topic.
Sure. And like, if I were talking to someone like you and that's exactly where you want to be, like, great, perfect. But I think for the average guy out there who just feels stuck where they are, I agree with you. I would want to know, what does what you're currently doing look like? But a very important part of that is, how much is that? Like, I would absolutely ask them, like, what does that look like from a macro perspective and a calorie perspective?
If it's a few ounces more or less, like that's the thing that I don't fully.
100% it does.
I don't.
100% it does, because if someone you underestimate how much of an impact it can have to have someone reduce their calories by 10%, which is super manageable for most people once you know what you're doing. Keep exactly the foods that you have in there. Obviously, if there are some like major red flags, like let's adjust those. But reducing your calories by 10% per week will lead, like, this is just math. It's just thermodynamics. Like, lead.
We don't have enough time to get into this thermodynamics conversation, because I think that there's conflicting research about with the thermodynamics and whether or not that actually is something that applies to the human body. But I mean, we can continue.
It 100%. I don't understand how you can make the argument that it doesn't. Like, and is there nuance to everything? 100%. But if I eat less, I lose weight. If I eat more, I gain weight. without changing the quality of the foods that I'm eating. And
For sure.
with anyone that does that, that is true. So,
but it's also really hard to gain significant amounts of adipose tissue if you're eating a very high quality diet. It's very, very difficult.
100%. But the question is,
very difficult to get fat eating chicken, vegetables, fruit, and starches.
But
it's
why
very
is
difficult.
that? I understand, but why is that? Why is it because? But here, so the two options: is it because those foods are very satiating, usually high in fiber, usually high in water content, and make it literally difficult from like a how big is my stomach and the sensors of me being full. So I can't hit a certain calorie number that is an absurd calorie surplus that's going to make me gain weight. Or is it that there's something about these foods that make it different, significantly different than the calories that you get from other foods? I think that it's
both. It's both for sure. You can't tell me. I'll never be convinced of the argument that 100 calories of Skittles is the same as 100 calories of fruit or whatever.
But that's like saying that 100 pounds of bricks is different than 100 pounds of feathers. Like calories.
You want to get hit by 100 pounds of bricks? I'll drop 100 pounds of bricks on you right now. And you tell me the difference between 100 pounds of bricks and 100 pounds of feathers.
But calories is just a measurement. Like that's all it is. Like to me, that statement just doesn't make any sense because at the end of the day, it's a measurement of energy.
Dennis,
the 100 calories of Skittles.
There's no way that your body takes 100 calories of Skittles and processes it the same way as 100 calories of fruit.
I'm not saying that.
Convince me of that.
No, I'm not. But I'm not saying that. But that's the thing. That's a complete straw man argument of something that I am not saying. I'm not saying.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that 100 calories of Skittles is the same as 100 calories of anything else because it's still calories. It's a unit of measurement.
Not the same. Okay. We're not going to agree on this. I don't agree that the way that 100 calories of Skittles goes into your body is processed the same way that 100 calories of fruit.
Neither do I. So neither do I.
That makes them necessirly different. That's like saying 100 pounds of bricks and 100 pounds of feathers. I'm going to pull a lever right now and 100 pounds of bricks is going to fall right on my head. Okay. That's
all right. We got to get to the challenge. We got to get the challenge.
All right.
We should continue this conversation next podcast, I think, because there's a lot to unpack. We'll go down a rabbit hole.
We definitely shouldn't.
That being said, quickly, I'm reading a good book right now called Burn. You guys ever read Burn?
Mm-mm.
All right, so a lot of it is around the research. I'm just kind of getting started with it. I kind of understand the basic premise and the ultimate conclusion, but he studies the Hadza hunter-gatherer tribe in Tanzania, I think. And what his research ultimately shows is that they burn the same number of calories in a day of hunting and gathering and like constant physical activity than the average Western sedentary person. And it's because our body has these kind of thermostats incorporated into them where depending upon how much energy we expend through activity, it's going to commit less energy towards other metabolic functions. And the less activity that we engage in is going to have the ability to increase the energy that it dedicates towards other metabolic functions. And it still is going to find a way to try to create some sort of homeostasis. And that's true not only in terms of output, but also input. So if we consume less food and input less energy, our body is going to find a way to force us to expend less energy through activity, through how much energy it commits towards other metabolic functions. And the more energy that we consume, the greater energy it's going to look to expend. And it's going to do that subconsciously. It's just going to like, if we expend more energy, it's subconsciously going to subconsciously not force us, but try to incentivize us to consume more energy. To make up for the fact that we expended more. And if we burn less, if we engage in less activity, it's going to subconsciously try to find ways to force us to consume less energy to maintain that homeostasis. And so, I mean, it speaks to a larger point that I think that to me, and I'm more in MDV's camp on this whole conversation, but to think that we can mathematically through some kind of formula, figure out how to regulate an incredibly complex system to me just always seemed insufficient, right? Like it's a necessary component, but it's completely insufficient to explain how the body either gains or loses weight in terms of just looking at calories consumed. So we can continue on with the conversation later on.
And we totally should.
By Herman Poncer, by the way.
Herman Poncer. The audio, don't get the audio book. The guy, the narrator is awful. It's so rough to listen to. But I'm trying to listen to it.
It's rough when the author doesn't do the narration.
And the guy they picked is brutal.
But anyway. But I mean, Den, I agree with what you last said. I don't think it can explain it 100%. And it's incredibly, Brett Weinstein talks about this a lot. Like our bodies are not just complicated systems, they're complex systems. It's impossible to put anything into like a very like X plus Y equals whatever. But, you said it too, like it's an incredibly necessary part. And I don't think that it should be completely disregarded. But I'd love to continue the conversation. We should definitely have it. Unfortunately, just to give you guys a heads up, I'm probably not going to be in the next 1, 2, maybe 3 recordings because I'm going to Ecuador. So you guys are going to have to do without me. And when I come back, we will definitely pick this subject up because
they don't have the internet in Ecuador?
Oh, they do, but I'm on vacation. So you guys can carry the load while I'm away.
All right. So let's talk about the challenge time. I think in hindsight went way too light.
That doesn't bode well for me.
So it was max reps, 95 pounds, shoulder press, right into push press, right into push jerk. And the heart of it was you can't drop the bar and that you want to get max reps at shoulder press, then max reps at push press. That was the heart of what it was. And dude, it was way too light. We should have gone like 135 or at least 115. So that's my take on it. But how'd it go for you guys? Who did it?
Well, I'll start off because it wasn't super hot. I'll just start off, and then Jason, you have to go because you came up with the challenge. But
or I could tell you, how about we just share our first number, then our second number, then our third number.
Okay.
My first number on shoulder press was 20.
That makes me feel significantly better. But so the one caveat that I'll add for anyone that's going to do this is it's easy, I think pretty easy, to get a much better score if you don't actually go to true failure on the strict press. I was thinking about that as I was like eking out some more strict press. I was like, dude, if I stopped this like 5 before, I'd be in such a better position. I got 15 for the first strict.
I got 20.
What's the total numbers? Are we talking total numbers or just one by one?
Just one by one.
Oh, I got a 0.
Then because you didn't do it or because you couldn't do it?
No, because I went right to push press.
Gaming it.
Okay.
I thought this was America.
Then I got 20 legit push press.
I got 10. 15, 10.
I think I got 12.
I did 21 push press with 50-pound dumbbells, and then I had to put them down because I couldn't really rebound off of the Achilles that much. So that's mostly why I did this. I just thought about doing a set of push press if I could.
Smart.
Yeah.
And then I got another 20 on the push jerk.
Wow.
So I got 70 total reps.
Wow. That's legit.
What was it? 20? 25, 20?
20.
That's not 70.
So,
wait.
Oh, so 20, 20, 30. 20, 20, 30. 20, 20, 30.
20, 20, 30.
Yeah,
okay, so you got 70.
Wow. Dude.
Legit.
30 push jerks you got?
Yeah, 30 push jerks. Sorry. Yeah, I got 70 total reps. I have the video to prove it.
That's pretty incredible. That's a pretty incredible number.
I mean, once you gave me that push jerk, baby, I was using my legs. It felt good.
Damn,
70
good for
reps.
you.
So wait, Gabe, how many did you get total?
Monster score.
Not good. I have 15, 10, and then 5.
Oh, so that wasn't a written error. That's actually what
I told you
happened.
I was going to come in with the is that a typo? Is that a typo score?
I got 42 total. I got 20 presses, 12 push press, and then 10 push jerks. 10? Is that right? That's 42, yeah.
The fact that Jason did 30 push jerks after doing 20 strict press and 20 push press is so fucking impressive.
Yeah,
it's
it's ridiculous.
hard to think about. That's pretty impressive, man.
Yeah,
I was expecting it to get significantly easier once you switch to each one, but it really wasn't.
And that was immediately harder.
Shoulder burn was like significantly more pronounced, and you got like a little bit more because you were using your legs. But that was a surprise to me. I was like, all right, 15. Let me get another 15. And it was like, nope. Let me get 10. And I was like, let me get 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me 2.5 minutes.
It's legit.
Yeah, it's legit. I thought we were going to be closer on that one.
He's got really good overhead mobility and overhead stability, though. For a bigger athlete with how big his upper body is, he can place the bar in a really optimal position, which in this workout is probably everything. If you can get the bar dropped over your center of mass every single rep,
yeah, because my overhead position is really
very
good.
Mine's not.
Yeah, but very, very good.
Mine's never been good, and it's so much worse now.
Oh man, let me reset my camera one more time. But yeah, 70 reps. Wow. Who's up for the next challenge?
Dan, you're up. Give us a good one. Come on. At least I know it's not going to be like 30 fucking minutes.
No, do you guys have kettlebells? Does everyone have kettlebells?
I have one of each though.
I have a 70.
A 70? What do you have, Gabe?
I have one of each. So I have 1, 35, 53, and 70.
Okay.
Is it 53 or 56?
53.
53.
I got
35, 53, 72.
You have a 70, Matt, MDV?
Yeah.
All right, so that changes. I was going to do like max kettlebell snatch at 53. But if you only have a 70, how about...
It's Russian swings.
I was going to say max overhead swings with a 70. Just max set.
That's a good one.
Oh.
That's good.
Goodbye.
Max
Let's
set
just do that.
swing overhead.
70-pound kettlebell,
Yeah.
max reps overhead. Just one set.
I like it.
Yeah,
We could do a time. We could do like max reps in a certain amount of time, or just one max unbroken set.
No, one max. I feel like it's going to get sloppy if you're like doing, unless I don't know.
You could do max reps in 2 minutes if you want, because normally I can go a minute straight, pretty relatively whatever. You want to do that?
Yeah, but you can kind of game it though. Just one max set. Hold on, do as many as you can. One max set.
Can you hold on to it in between your legs for a second, or do you have to keep moving?
No, just keep it moving.
Has to continue.
Yeah, continuous movement. One max unbroken set. 70-pound kettlebell, all the way overhead.
All right.
Try to get like straight arm.
What's the lockout?
As best you
can. What's the lockout standard here? Can the belt elbow bent, bell forward, or is the bell up? Doesn't matter.
I'm a bell up guy. Personally, try to do your best. Honor system with that, I guess.
Bell up with a 70-pound bell.
Yeah, I know.
We're talking like 2009 CrossFit Games standard, vertical.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be perfectly pin straight, but bent arm with the thing out in front of you, it starts getting kind of dicey. It's a gray area, right?
I'm a macronutrient guy personally.
All right. So max reps, 70-pound KB. Max reps is Dennis's challenge. I just mopped up the shoulder to overhead challenge.
Yeah,
it's about time, Jay.
That was an annihilation.
It's about time.
Jay knows he's going to eat on this one too. Jay's definitely going to eat.
I know.
That's another thing the kids say.
That's why I wanted the snatch. The snatch I could hang, but the swing I'm not going to be able to hang.
Oh no, we'll be good. We'll be good. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys. Thank you everybody for listening to our show. Simple ask. We put out some stuff on Instagram on my channel, and the goal is just continue to, build, grow, share, learn. And so if you guys get value from the show, right, share it with 2 other friends that you think we get value from. And we have Gabe and I on episodes. We have the home team episodes. We have some guest episodes. And go check them all out. Leave the show a rating and review. And just share it with a friend that you think is going to get value from it. But other than that, join us on the TH45 Challenge and keep training hard.